Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the 2-Point Conversion with Fish and Nooch. You can find us at www.gamedaytigers.com. Well, the theme continues for 2020. What a shit show. LSU is coming off the greatest season in college football history. 15-0, national champs, beat like 10 ranked teams, Heisman Trophy winner, Biletnikoff winner, Thorpe Award winner, Joe Moore Award winners with the offensive line, Joe Brady, Assistant of the Year, Coach O, Coach of the Year. I know I'm skipping some, but absolutely the greatest football season ever to this. LSU was obliterated by Auburn on the Plains, the worst defeat in that series' history. And we've beaten the hell out of them a few times. They beat the hell out of us back in 2014, starting a freshman quarterback for the first time on the road in Auburn. I don't know what anybody expected out of this year. I know that we weren't going to repeat what we did last year. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. But this is ludicrous, what's going on with the LSU football program right now. They don't pay me to make changes, but we're going to make some changes on the 2-Point Conversion with Fish and Nooch. You hear that music coming in your background? Everybody help me welcome in to different intro music, my buddy from down the bayou, Nooch. Here we go. What's happening, Nooch?
What the hell did we just watch?
Well, 2020 is...
It's a shit show.
Yeah, that's the only thing I got to say about it. Didn't pull any punches in the lead up here before you came on. I don't know what to say about it. I think we'll probably keep this podcast kind of short because, what is there to break down?
Unless we want to really just dive into the complete level of suck that we're achieving now.
We don't have time.
No, definitely not. I don't know. I don't even have an answer for it. It's baffling to me. It's mind-boggling that this could be the worst LSU football team in, I don't know, at least 25 years?
I would say at least since 99, 98.
Yeah, 99 was pretty rough too. But the 99 team at least had some heart early on, and I think would probably beat this one.
Yeah, well, who wouldn't? What a year to only have an SEC schedule. Although, maybe that's a good thing.
I guess.
It wasn't any fun when we lost to Troy in 2017, and it really sucked to lose to somebody like a UTSA.
That would have been pretty bad. Texas would have hung 90 on us.
We'd have probably hung 90 on them, but it would have come down to, a shootout, just like Missouri and Mississippi State did. And we couldn't figure out a way to win those.
Correct.
All right. Let's just talk about the game, the Auburn game. We'll talk about TJ Finley real quick. In the South Carolina game, TJ Finley looked good and got a lot of people's hopes up real high. The reality of it, the play calling helped him out a lot. He played well. I'm not going to take that away from him. He played very well in that game.
Yes, he did.
But the play calling helped him out a lot. He did not hit on long passes that he attempted, but he was pretty good in the short passing game. And I say pretty good. You look at his stats and you're like, oh, he was excellent. But, he had a lot of help from a guy named Terrace Marshall.
Right.
Who reached behind himself to catch a couple of balls and turn them into touchdowns.
Yes.
They were not great passes, but they look good on a score sheet.
They do.
But with that said, on the road, I know it's not a full jerks in hair. How do you say that?
Jerks in here stadium.
Yeah, it wasn't a full jerks in here stadium. But the bottom line is he's on the road at Auburn, and we've seen what happens to true freshman quarterback that go on the road at Auburn.
I don't think he actually looked that bad. Even his 2 interceptions, the first one, it sailed on him. I don't think it was a bad read. It was just an inaccurate pass. He airmailed it, which that happens. And then his second one was deflected, and, it was tipped 100 feet in the air, and Auburn had time to rally the troops around it before it hit the ground.
The fumble was the worst thing that I saw, and it was awful. I mean, I think you and I talked about this. You said, give him credit for trying to make a play, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to eat it. That's
Yes.
totally on the offensive line, that play. And we can go on and on about that, but we're not going to. Our offensive line is trash.
Yes.
Liam Shanahan, God love him. I mean, it's hard to talk bad about a guy that graduated from Harvard and made an SEC roster on a national championship team. There's a reason he went to Harvard.
Yes.
Besides the fact that he's obviously very smart.
Yeah.
He reminds me a little bit of Andrew Hatch. Not obviously different positions, but, super smart guy, but there's a reason he went to Harvard.
Typically, you're either very good at sports or you're very smart. It's rare that you have the right combination of the size, the speed, the talent, everything you need, plus be ridiculously smart on top of all of that. That just doesn't happen very often.
I mean, the guy made the team, and so obviously he's very good at sports, but there's a difference between very good at sports and elite.
Yeah.
SEC
so.
elite talent, and he's not. I mean, he doesn't have the size or evidently the elite talent to compete at this level, and he's our starting center.
Yeah.
All right. It is what it is. And he's not, I mean, we're isolating on him, but he's not the issue, not the only issue on the offensive line. Really, the best offensive lineman we have is by and far Ed Ingram, and, he's pretty good.
Yeah. He's the only one I think you could say that about at the moment. But
the running backs, I don't have anything negative to say about Emery or Tyrion Davis-Price. Curry has been underwhelming, and
that's one way to put it.
At some point, I understand you got a rotation, but at some point, we've already got two. Neither is a bell cow. Both are capable of being bell cow. Just run those guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 18. Hey, Richard Murphy was 18. He didn't play a lot.
Correct. I had high hopes for Curry. Maybe he looked as good as he did because it was Oklahoma. I don't know. I expected better, so I'm somewhat disappointed in that one.
We're too late in the season to be tinkering with it.
Right.
We know what we have. All right. We got some good wide receivers.
Yes.
Terrace Marshall is an NFL wide receiver, period.
Yes.
Yes. My only concern with Terrace Marshall is just seeing some of these other teams having an issue with players opting out once they realize the season's a bust.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see that with Marshall. Marshall's playing at a level high enough that he's making himself more and more money every weekend. Some of these other guys who are opting out, it's not really guys who I think had a chance to make a huge change in their draft stock. They kind of are who they are, and that's just where they'll be. Whereas Marshall could get himself into the very, the top third of the first round. That's the type of season he's having already. And you and I said it before, it's the type of season he was having before the injury last year. So if he could play through this entire season injury-free at this level, he's going to creep up into like top 10 pick type range.
Yeah, I do think that's the only thing he has left to prove, because he hasn't proven yet that he can go through a season without winding up on the IR.
Right.
And I guess one of the guys you were talking about on other teams, maybe like a Kylan Hill, the guy went from being a bell cow in a run-heavy offense to the air raid at Mississippi State, and he doesn't touch the ball anymore. So, I get it with him, I guess. But I'm just starting to see that across the country, and it kind of concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, Kylan Hill is like actual polar opposite of Marshall's situation. I mean, this guy was the leading returning rusher in the SEC. He was a stud. We're talking, he's going to be one of the first couple of backs gone. And now he's costing himself money because, he doesn't even touch the ball. So you might as well just not even be on the team. If you're not going to touch the ball, don't be on the team because, NFL scouts are going to know that, you went to air raid, but why aren't they throwing you the ball? That's going to be the question. Why aren't you getting the touches? Those questions start to pop in, and you start tumbling on the draft boards. So, it's in his best interest to say, screw this, I'm not playing anymore, and walk away.
He touched the ball against us.
Yes, that's the only game he did.
All right. Honestly, we kind of skipped through that real quickly. The offense, as depressing as this game was, I'm still going to give away MVP of the offense for the game, if you can believe that.
Go for it. I'm not, but you can.
That's fine. I'm going to give mine to Max Johnson because he came in and we scored a touchdown when he was in, and he looked really good against Auburn's third-string defense.
Yes. I guess that is the bright spot with this season is we are seeing our two young freshmen. They are the future of the program. Barring some other transfer or something that we can't see coming in the future. But these two guys are, at least one of them is the future.
And I'm going to get to the future towards the end of the podcast because that's basically what I'm still interested in with this season right now.
Okay.
So let's go over to the deep. Do we have to?
Yeah. Can we just say that we did and not actually do it? Or
No. Let's do it real quick. The defense is horrendous, y'all. It's the worst defense that, honestly, it's the worst defense I've ever seen at LSU in my time being alive.
And
I'm old.
Both of us are old enough to have remembered the entire Hurley Hallman era, the Lou Tepper era, the 08 when we wanted to run Mallory and Pivito off, hell, even 13 Chavis was bad. We've seen some less than special defenses here at times. This one takes the cake, and I don't have a close second. This one's that bad.
Well, it's because it's across the board. I mean, the linebacker play with Tepper was, the drop linebacker was bad. That kind of stuck out. But it's across the board now. Our defensive line is heavily depleted, but the bottom line is our defensive line is horrendous at holding their gaps.
And the attrition keeps on coming because now we've lost a Puaika, who, man, I really like that kid. I hate to see him go, but
I kind of understand why he opted out. The only thing I see with the 4-3 and the 3-4, he was recruited as a 3-4 nose tackle.
Right.
We don't run the 3-4 anymore, and we don't really have a place for a nose tackle per se. But, I'd rather him be in there just clogging up the middle because the middle is getting killed.
You're right. We don't have a true nose tackle, but we do have two defensive tackles. And, let's be realistic. Of all the positions on the field, the one that changes the least is you're from nose tackle to defensive tackle when you swap. That's it. You line up a foot and a half further to your right or left, depending on which side. That's pretty much, that's it. There's not really a huge difference. Yeah, typically they're a little bit smaller in the 4-3 than they are the 3-4, and Ika might be a little on the big side, but I'm confident in thinking he's better than what we've seen from anyone else so far this year. He had a good game against South Carolina.
Well, okay, you said Ika was maybe a little heavy.
A little large. Yeah.
That's the best compliment he's ever gotten. Anyway, now he's a big guy, but the thing with the 4-3, for those, we know our audience. There's not a lot of you, but we know our audience, like, personally. And
right.
I know some of you have questions about, like, the difference between a 4-3 and a 3-4. And the easiest way for me to describe it is the 3-4 is designed for the linebackers to be freed up and attack. And the 4-3 is the other way.
Right.
The defensive line does the attacking. And so in the 3-4, you have Devin White and Mike Divinity and Patrick Queen, Jacob Phillips, Caleb Von Chasson. That's your linebackers, and their job is to get after the quarterback. And in the 4-3, it's the opposite. You have 4 defensive linemen, and their job is to get after the quarterback. So they're typically smaller and faster.
Correct.
Fair assessment?
Yeah, that's fair. The differences are a lot smaller than most people realize, too, because even if you are in the 3-4, really, let's say we were still 3-4, B.J. Ojolari would be doing the exact same thing he's doing now, except we would call him an outside linebacker instead of a rush in.
Right.
But it's the same position. You just call it something different.
But you just don't see you just don't see a lot of 350-pound defensive tackles.
No.
In a 4-3.
No, you don't. And we could have had two of them if Shelvin would have been here as well. But
Right. That's my whole thing is the big guys left for a reason. That's
yeah,
their reason. My counter to that would be we're getting killed over the middle.
right.
And that
These guys.
includes the middle of the line, that includes the middle of the linebackers, and that includes probably the
Safeties.
most disappointing thing to me is the middle of the secondary because we're DBU and our safety play is horrendous.
Terrible.
Derek Stingley on one side, Eli Ricks, who is turning in a season like Derek Stingley did last year, in my opinion. Congratulations on your man crush.
Hey, he's already got a pick six, though.
True. But, he's got a couple of picks. Derek Stingley doesn't have any. That's kind of like what I was talking about with our audience. We had a little chat room the other night, and Doxy asked, hey, what's up with Stingley? You don't hear his name much. Well, that's fantastic news because that's what you want out of your cornerback is for them to never throw the ball his way. And they learned from his SEC leading interceptions last year, don't throw the ball that guy's way. So they try to pick on Ricks. Oops.
Also, not a good idea. And man, Ricks is getting better and better. He already has excellent ball skills. That's usually very, very instinctive, and that's tough to come by. Now he's just learning the hard way. He's gotten burned a couple of times. Some were miscommunications. You got to realize this is no longer high school, and quarterbacks can make that back shoulder throw, and you can't just plow into the guy like Ricks has done a couple of times now. So those are things that I think he'll improve at even more. He already is improving from earlier in the year. I mean, he's the next stud here, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, he's a freshman, but he looks a part of the next first-round draft pick DBU.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let me rephrase that. Not the next, but the next
the
in
next
line.
one behind Stingley.
Yeah, the next in line.
Yes.
Yeah, Stingley and Ricks are good. Everybody else on the defense is not so good.
Right.
Actually, we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to talk about the future, like I said. And I do have some good things to say about some young guys on the defense. All right. I'm going to go ahead. I gave an MVP on offense. I'm going to give one on defense. And it's one of the rare times this season that I've had to tout my man crush. The play he made at the goal line, that basically all it did in the long term is kept it from being even more of a blowout. But that was spectacular.
But at the time, that was a big play. That was still a game at that point.
Oh yeah, if we go down and score right there, if I'm not mistaken, we take the lead.
Yes.
That was a spectacular play that is going to get overlooked because of the rest of the game. But it was, dare I say, I mean, I think you'd agree, it was kind of Honey Badger-esque.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
It was slick.
The only difference between that play and the Honey Badger would have figured out a way to actually recover and return that somehow.
Yes, I agree. It went out of the end zone, but yeah, I agree. But yeah, it was Honey Badger-esque as far as getting that ball out of that guy's hand. I mean, that was a touchdown.
Yes, it was.
In fact, I believe it
absolutely.
was called a touchdown. And upon further review, no. It's
Correct.
a touchback, LSU's ball. Really spectacular play. So that's my defensive MVP. It's really the only one I've got to give because the rest of it was just horrendous.
Yeah. I'm not giving one ever again until further notice. I have to see something change drastically with this team before I give anyone on defense a game ball.
So who is your game ball going to?
Zach Von Rosenberg.
Okay. All right. Continues to be. He's going to be the MVP of the team for the season at this rate.
He's the best player on the roster so far.
Performance-wise, I would have to agree.
I mean, I even think he does a fantastic job holding on place kicks.
Well, and it's a good thing because, we gave the guy, he's old.
Yeah.
And we gave the guy 3 out of the last 4 weeks off.
Right.
Except for in the South Carolina game, he did hold on a lot of extra points.
And a couple of field goals.
Don't
shortchange him, man. This is the team MVP we're talking about here.
But he had a bye week with the postponement of the Florida game. Then the South Carolina game, he attempted exactly 0 punts. And then he punted a lot this past week. But now he's got another
And
week off.
and man, look, at the end of the first half, he pinned them at the 1. At the 1. That should have been, I mean, in theory at the time, you're thinking that was an amazing play. That could have been one of the plays of the game, and then our defense allowed them to march 99 yards for a touchdown right before half and kind of ruined everything. But, I mean,
he did his part.
The guy's our player. Yeah, absolutely. He's the best player on the team. And you mentioned he's old. Yeah, guess what? He's the only person who was alive on this roster the last time LSU lost this bad.
96?
Yeah, 96 against Florida, who was at least a national championship team with the Heisman Trophy winner, not this Auburn team with Baby Nix.
Our defense made Baby Nix look like Cam Newton.
Yeah.
It just makes me sick. Makes me sick. Because both of us are defensive-minded guys. That's our favorite part of the ball to watch. And, oh, man, this season is just brutal.
Man, and look, I'll tell you now, because our fan base in general wondered for years. We talked about, man, look at you watch the Big 12 with the high-scoring offenses and crap defenses. Hey, man, look, I'm not going to lie. Half the season, that's all I need to see. Let's go back to Smash Mouth where our defense was the baddest sons of bitches on the block. And offense, yeah, you kind of hope they showed up. But we were at least in these games.
Yeah, not a lot of blowouts during that time. Sometimes the score didn't really reflect how bad we got beat if we got beat. We didn't get beat a lot,
right.
But if we did, the score didn't reflect how badly we got beaten. But it was because we were controlling the clock and keeping the other team off the field, and our defense was good, and our special teams were good. We kind of got decent special teams this year. I mean, punter's great, MVP. Our kicker's little sophomore phenom still. I mean, he hadn't done anything to disappoint me this year except for that one he got blocked. I'm sorry if you miss a 54-yarder by a couple of inches. I don't hold that against you.
Yeah, you're okay with that. At 54, I'm good with that.
I don't hold that against you. So yeah, he's great.
Trey Palmer almost broke one again. He got tackled by a kicker, so
he tripped over the kicker.
Either way, the kicker brought you down, so you gotta, you get messed with whenever that happens. I'm sorry that you can't. You can trip over anyone else on the field except the kicker. Both
Stingley and Palmer have had excellent punt returns. Nothing to complain about really with special teams on the. I mean, do you call it the offensive side of special teams? I don't know what you call that, but the defensive side, the coverage side of special teams has been a little suspect here and there. But that's not anything that's really hurt us.
No. I mean, what's really hurt has been the defense itself. And, man, let's be honest. It was freshman quarterbacks or whatever you want to say. But we did raise questions in some of those other games about the offense, about third downs, about red zone, about all of that. And this wasn't even a really good Auburn defense that kind of made us look bad. They shut us down. We got 8 points in garbage time.
Kevin Steele's a good defensive coordinator, and I'll fight you over it.
He's good, correct. I like that you used the word good. I agree with you. He is good.
He got a bad rap when he was at LSU, and I don't really know why, because we really weren't that bad. I would give anything to have that defense right now.
He gets a bad rap because he happened to follow immediately after one of our more elite eras. And people do talk shit about Chief his last year here, but, I mean, Steele was right behind the Honey Badger, the Patrick Peterson, the Brandon Taylor, all of those guys, the Mingo, Montgomery, that squad. He followed immediately after that. And we did take a step back. But that was a step back. That was it. We weren't that far behind. It was just we went from being so good, like we're talking historically great defense, to just really good defense.
Top 25.
Right.
Yeah, he's pretty good, though. I would give anything to have that defense. I can just say that right now. This defense that we have right now, both Nooch and I have crow to eat. Good thing is, Nooch is a really good cook, and I bet he can make crow taste, at the very least, palatable.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a shot at it.
But we have crow to eat. Both of us were ecstatic about the Bo Pelini hire. And at this point, we're halfway through the season. First couple of games, I'm like, they'll come around. I'm not seeing it.
No, they're not coming around.
Now, I will say this. I'm gonna let you actually say it, but it is not because he's old And it is
No,
not because the 4-3 is outdated.
correct.
Who runs a
It's
4-3 besides us?
well, the Auburn team that just shut us down for one,
Thank you.
and they've been a very good defense. Actually, this is a bad year for them defensively, and they're still good. They're still decent. Go back to last year. We had possibly the greatest offense ever assembled in the history of college football. You know who gave us fits and shut us down? Kevin Steele's 4-3.
Yep.
So it's not the scheme in and of itself, but there's something wrong with the implementation, maybe with possibly the all around coaching. Something's missing. Something's getting lost in translation somewhere. Because if you look, our guys don't know where to be. That's the part that gets me. Is I'm seeing, first off, up the middle sucks. I'm sorry, it's just bad. Lamone Clark didn't see much playing time this weekend, which thankfully, because he's not very good. But especially in the secondary, what really bothers me is how many times we see a guy just wide ass open, and then everybody in the secondary is pointing fingers at each other with their arms up in the air, like, "Wait, I thought you had him." "No, you had him." "Well, who's got him?" I don't know. On the long touchdown pass to Schwartz, Stingley just let the guy go free. And then Tolles was coming up as if Tolles looked like he was playing cover 0. Stingley thought we were playing cover 2. And I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It was so bad. I couldn't tell you what we were supposed to be doing in that situation.
My money's on Stingley was right.
I would too, because he's been here longer and he's the All-American. But we saw it actually earlier in the year. It was against Mississippi State, I think it was. Or no, I'm sorry, it was in the Missouri game. On the opposite side of the field with Ricks and Harris. Harris is coming up as if he's playing cover 0. Ricks thinks he's got deep help, so Ricks lets the guy break free, and he covers the underneath, and then there's nobody. Guy's wide open behind us. So what's going on there? It's happening too many times to say that that was a breakdown in coverage. No, there's a breakdown in communication somewhere. These guys aren't all on the same page. I'm not even really sure they're in the same book at the moment.
That's not the first time this season where you watch the play and then you go back and you rewatch it, and then you go back and you rewatch it again, and neither one of us can tell what defense we're in.
Yeah, you don't know what one we're supposed to be in, because some guys are I don't know. I'm not sure what the hell's happening.
And obviously, like you're saying, the players don't know which defense they're supposed to be in.
I know now why we didn't play more zone against Mississippi State, because zone, you have to be on the same page as everyone. And like I said, you know what? I'm going to take it a step further. Not only am I not sure we're in the same book as each other, I'm not sure we're standing in the same library right now. It's that pathetic. It's that bad with the communication. And I'm going to repeat something Brandon Taylor said, who, by the way, if you get a chance to find anywhere on YouTube Brandon Taylor's post-game rant, you have to listen to it. It is epic. But, yeah, even Brandon Taylor couldn't tell you where we were. And he hates the finger pointing. The guys looking at each other with their arms up in the air. That should never happen. We have no, at least readily apparent, leader on this defense who comes out and barks orders and gives directions and calls the shots and the signals that everybody looks to. We don't have that guy this year. We typically have multiple. This year we have none. The guy you and I thought was going to be him, well, isn't.
Yeah, Jacoby. I was going to say on offense, I don't really have any most disappointing player except for maybe Racey McMath, and it's not that I'm disappointed in him necessarily. It's just that I expected a lot from him. I expected him to have like a breakout year, but
yeah, he's one I thought was gonna shine more than what he has.
But on defense, it's got to be Jacoby is the most disappointing. I am disappointed in him because if you recall, last year in the Ole Miss game, we were getting our asses kicked. At least the defense was. I mean, we were going to beat Ole Miss, but the defense was getting its asses kicked. And Jacoby is over there on the sideline and just taking charge and challenging everybody on that defense. He was doing it two ways, verbally and by example. And he became a leader that night. It's why both of us thought, we just automatically assumed, well, he's going to be number 18 this year because he was clearly the leader of that defense last year, and all the leaders from offense left, so it had to be Jacoby.
Right. I would have bet money on it. If we stuck with the old tradition of the previous 8 teams choosing, I think he would be 18 right now.
Oh, I guarantee you. But he's not that this year. He's not 18
No,
in number or in play, in spirit, in leadership. He's not 18 this year.
no. He's not 7 either. And
No.
seven's one of these new traditions that I actually don't really care for, but he's not. I don't know. I don't know what happened to the guy. I thought for sure he was coming back and was going to play himself into the top couple of rounds of the draft. That's not happening. I mean, it was at least I've pumped this guy up for years. He was my man crush in 17 and 18. I mean, it was fairly early last year when I came out and declared that, yeah, he was the best player on our defense. And it took you a little longer to come around, but he was the best player on the D last year. And he's not this year. I don't think he's even top 3. Maybe top 5, maybe.
I don't know.
That's even then. That's like declaring yourself the tallest midget. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
So the only thing I can figure out with him, and you and I have said this actually for a couple of years, as good as he was last year, he's been out of position pretty much his whole career.
He's tried every position on the planet except punter because Rosenberg's there.
He probably should be playing linebacker. And I have to think that the change from Aranda to Pelini probably has affected him more than anybody.
Yeah, I can definitely see, because you went from 4 linebackers, which, I mean, Jacoby was listed as a safety, but let's be honest, last year it was more of a hybrid linebacker that he played. That position no longer exists on the field this year.
Right.
And if the rest of the secondary was playing up to par, he could still freelance, but now he can't because, well, nobody's playing well. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's a mess.
This podcast sucks.
Yeah, it does.
We don't have anything good to say. So let's say something good. I told you I was going to talk about the future. I'll start with the offense. Both the true freshman quarterbacks, I understand that TJ Finley had a bad game the other day, but both of the true freshman quarterbacks have impressed and give hope for the future. I don't know if both of them are going to stick around, but I'm not going to get into that because that's just something that I kind of despise about college football right now. But the bottom line is we got either one of them. I would be comfortable with them taking the reins after Miles Brennan leaves.
Correct.
And there's been many, many seasons when we could not say that, and now we have 2 of them.
Yeah, that we should have at least one should stick around.
Yes. And then you have Eric Gilbert. He's a bright spot. He's fun to watch.
Yes.
He's number 2. Number 1, Kayshon Boutte impresses the hell out of me every time he touches the ball because, number 1, he doesn't drop the ball very often, if at all. I don't know that he's had any drops.
I'm not sure either.
But when he catches the ball, something good's about to happen. I mean, he hasn't broken one yet, which is actually a shock to me because every time he touches it, it looks like he's about to break it. But he gets up the field quickly. Coy Moore started off kind of shaky, lots of drops early. But now he's coming around into his own, and he's pretty fun to watch too after he catches the ball. So that's on the offensive side of the ball. I just rattled off, 5 true freshmen?
Yeah. And while not a true freshman, obviously, but Jaire Jenkins, I mean, he's back next year as well. And he's quietly having himself a pretty good year.
Yeah, really, not even so quietly.
Yeah.
He's impressed. But just those true freshmen have impressed the hell out of me, and it makes you really look forward to the future on the offense. On the defense, B.J. Ojulari.
Yes.
He's a freak.
O said he was going to be an All-American before his junior year, and yeah, I don't see anything to give me reason to disagree with that. I don't think he'll make it this year, but I'll tell you, he'll be on the short list next year.
Yeah, he's a freak. Other than him on the defense, is there any other true freshman that's doing all right?
I mean, there's this other guy who's had an okay season so far. You know, Ricks, who's going to be a freshman All-SEC without a doubt.
Yeah, he I don't know, with these All-American teams, a lot of it may have to do with how your team do, but on last year's LSU team, he's a freshman All-American.
Yeah. It's going to be really hard to give a defensive back from this particular defense any type of All-American nods this year. As good as what Stingley is, he's probably not going to get an All-American nod because, well, the first thing anyone is going to say outside of LSU's fan base is, really? You guys give up 1,000 yards a game in passing. How can the DB? So that's going to hurt him.
Yeah. Ricks has done well. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tout your man crush.
It's my guy, man. I'm excited for him. It's probably the most excited I've been for a freshman man crush of mine in a while.
Allie Gay has started off on fire, and I don't know if teams started picking up on what he was doing and prepping for him, but that's kind of come to a screeching halt a little bit. But
well, I'll say this. I do know we've seen in the past when you're strong up the middle, your ends are so much better. Glenn Dorsey made Tyson Jackson a multimillionaire just by being Glenn Dorsey. He made Tyson Jackson look that much better. And I think it's kind of where Allie Gay is now. Him being on the outside, we're not getting that push in the middle like we should. It really, truly slows him down and hinders him. Whereas you need those guys in the middle taking up space, taking on blockers, which frees up your two ends to go one-on-one. And unfortunately, these guys ain't going one-on-one because, well, we don't have to double up anybody in the middle.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, if he's dependent on the middle of the defensive line to help him out, he's screwed.
Yes, very much so.
But I did want to give him props because he was a pleasant surprise the first couple of games. We're halfway through the season, and he looks the part. We just got to get better play all around.
I was pleasantly surprised to see Tolles get in the game. He was actually in early. I mean,
I'm sorry. You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh because this is so bad. The only thing you can do to stay sane is laugh. But I didn't realize who it was. But when Schwartz is the fastest guy in college football, and when they had that miscommunication, I'm like, who's number 21? He looks slow, and then I realized who he was chasing, and he told me it was Jordan Tolles. I'm like, never mind. He's a safety chasing the fastest guy on the planet.
Right. But, I mean, you think about it. He's a true freshman, got playing time. Rick's a true freshman, getting plenty of playing time. Yeah, Stingley's back next year because he's not draft eligible yet. So Stingley's back. I don't know what to say about Jacoby going forward. I mean, does he leave now? He is eligible. He was eligible last year. Does he come back since he does still have that year? I'm not sure. It's kind of one of those, is it a good thing that everybody's coming back or not? Because, well, we're not playing well right now. So everybody back, do we all just not play well next year? Who the hell knows? But, I mean, the talent is there. The physical athletes on the field are there. Something needs to click, and hopefully it happens during the course of this year. So that going into next season, we got that first step out of the way.
Now, we've always said on this podcast we don't do predictions, but we're changing things up, right? We play in different intro music for you. Go ahead and tell them why you chose that intro music. By the way,
well, I just sat back and looked at it, and first off, Auburn usually runs out to "Welcome to the Jungle," so that alone wasn't too cool. I'm pretty sure that's why you gave it to me initially.
It is.
And you know what? If we're going to play like it's the early 90s, then give me the early 90s music, man. I got really into the grunge scene back then, so let's bring it back. If we're bringing back the 90s, we're bringing it all back.
All right. Another change is that I'm going to start making predictions.
Go ahead.
Different predictions, not necessarily going to be predicting the LSU games, but in this case, on the next podcast, I will be predicting the LSU game that is to follow.
Okay.
Will you also be making any predictions?
I mean, I've already made one this year. I don't know whether it comes true or not yet, but I've already made one. And yeah, I'm not scared. Screw it. We can throw out the whole script from last year, and I'll make a prediction every week if you want. You throw something at me, and I'll predict it.
Who's in the playoffs this year?
This year, I think the top three are pretty easy. It's going to be Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. What order they're in, 1 through 3, is really not relevant. And, I haven't seen anyone from the Pac-12 play yet, but I'm going to Oregon.
Well, damn it. We're going to agree. So this year, no conference gets 2 teams in.
I don't see it. The Big 12, I think, has already eliminated themselves completely from anything and everything. I mean, who else in the ACC? Really? Okay, Notre Dame's playing an ACC schedule, but they're going to lose today to Clemson. And I don't see anything else on their schedule to jump them back up, be a second team. So go to the Big 10. Ohio State's in. Penn State already has 2 losses. Wisconsin's going to miss 3 full weeks because of the COVID quarantine that they're on. So they're not even going to play enough games to get any kind of real acknowledgement or recognition. Both Michigan schools already have bad losses, so I don't see a second team from there. And now you come to the SEC. Where can you find a second team? I mean, I don't think Georgia. I don't see them. Florida's going to have at least 2 losses, so they're out of it. The rest of the West is crap.
Okay.
I mean,
not a prediction. However,
yeah.
I could see a second SEC team making it.
Who and how?
All right. I'm assuming that you are under the impression that Georgia's going to beat Florida.
Yes.
But Georgia already has a loss, and then they would make the SEC championship game and lose again to Alabama.
Correct.
Okay, so that would eliminate them.
Correct.
Number one, I'm not certain that Georgia's going to beat Florida. Georgia can't score.
Okay.
They have a really good defense, but Florida has a really good offense.
Yes. And their defense at times looks every bit as bad as ours.
Yes, but Georgia cannot score. They're terrible offensively. That's not my pick, though. I think it's possible that if Florida beats Georgia, they could make the playoffs. However,
I don't know. Well, but how? Florida already has a loss. I mean,
and then they'd have to beat Alabama.
They would have to beat Alabama.
It's 2020.
You're right, but if they beat Alabama, does Alabama still get in?
I don't know. You're right, but I would say so, yeah, because they're Alabama, and that would be their only loss, and they have looked really good.
Right.
However, that's not my number one selection as to the second SEC team that could make it into the playoffs this year.
Okay.
I hope everybody's sitting down when I say this, especially Doxy. Now you know where I'm going.
Oh yeah, I know exactly where you're going with this one. This one's gonna be fun.
Texas A&M, Aggie.
Man,
not a prediction, just saying it could absolutely happen.
Could it happen? Maybe. I guess that's possible. Highly, highly unlikely.
You remember in the beginning of the year, we were talking about their first 10 games, they're going to be 10-0.
Yeah.
But then they had to play LSU and Alabama.
Back to back.
But 10-0 with a lot of momentum. They have talent. There were people that were hyping them up as a playoff contender then. But then when COVID happens and the schedules get all screwed up, well, now all of a sudden their schedule doesn't look so friendly. Stop making all that racket, damn it.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Their schedule doesn't look so friendly. Well, here we are, week 5. They've played Alabama and lost. And look bad doing it. They had to play them super early. And what's left on their schedule?
You're right.
LSU? Ha! Give me a break.
Yeah, you're right. You're correct. And I can see them finishing with 1 loss. But
to the number 1 team in the country. Or number 2, however you look at it.
The Alabama's top 3. They're one of the top 3. And there's a gap. There's a big gap, I think, between 3 and everybody else this year. I agree, but okay, let's just use my scenario. Let's just say, even if it's Oregon or Utah, if one of them went out and they're undefeated with the conference championship, and yeah, A&M, your only loss is to Alabama, but it was a bad loss.
Okay, let me clarify something. Let me clarify something. I'm not predicting it, like I said.
Correct.
And that's the reason why, is because I have no idea what's going to happen in the Pac-12. And if an
do I.
Oregon or, somebody in the Pac-12 goes undefeated, well, obviously that's probably going to eliminate a second 1-loss SEC team.
And I'll also say this for A&M's chances. They need Clemson to absolutely embarrass Notre Dame today as well. Because if it comes down to it, and that's 2 one-loss teams, and those 2 teams each have only a loss to one of those playoff teams, Notre Dame's name carries a lot more weight.
Well, I think that's
A&M
all.
does.
I think that's all going to come to a screeching halt tonight because I think DJ Ukulele is going to throw for 400 and embarrass Notre Dame.
And he may.
Is that his name?
It's Unga Lalele.
Ukulele.
Yeah. Uwe Unga Lalele or something like. I don't know. It's some weird. Who cares?
I'm going with DJ Ukulele.
That'll work.
All right, everybody. We're going to call it a wrap. There's not a whole lot of good to talk about, and this podcast sucks because we can't really celebrate anything. But we do have the future to look forward to. We kind of highlighted some freshmen that have really been some of the better players on the team this year.
Yes.
So that's exciting to go forward with. We got a bye week, and during the next podcast, I will reveal my prediction for the LSU-Alabama game, which is taking place on November 14th. I bet you're all looking forward to that prediction.
Absolutely. I'm going to make one, too. Same week. Why not?
All right, cool. So you're going to have 2 double predictions next week's podcast, anticipation of the LSU-Alabama game. Doesn't quite carry the same weight it usually does this year, but we're going to try and spice it up and make some predictions. Until next time, everybody join us at www.gamedaytigers.com. Go Tigers!
Go Tigers!